He wasn't just a rock star, he was an alien, a chameleon, a man who lived 100 lives in one. David Bowie didn't follow trends. He shattered them and built new worlds from the pieces. From Ziggy Stardust to the Thin White Duke, from Berlin experiments to pop superstardom, Bowie kept changing, and the world raced to keep up. But behind the masks, who was the real David Bowie? And how did one man rewrite rock history forever? David Robert Jones was born in Brixton, South London in 1947 to a waitress and a charity worker. Post-war London was a city of ration books, bombed-out buildings, and long queues for food. But it was also alive with music. American jazz records, Frank Sinatra on the radio, and theaters reopening to distract people from hardship. Bowie grew up in a house filled with those sounds. His half-brother Terry, who introduced him to jazz, poetry, and the counterculture, was a towering influence. Together they roamed Brixton's streets, soaking up the color and chaos of its multicultural life. These early encounters with art, eccentricity, and rebellion planted the seed of his future stage personas. School didn't tame him. Teachers told him his singing voice wasn't strong enough. But David ignored them. He learned guitar, saxophone, dance, even mime. He was fascinated by theater and by performers who could transform themselves completely. He wanted to be one of them. At 15, a fight with his friend George Underwood changed him forever. A punch damaged his left eye, leaving his pupils permanently uneven. Not two different colors, but a condition called anisocoria. It gave Bowie the piercing, otherworldly gaze that became part of his myth. Remarkably, he forgave George, and they remained close for life. By the mid-60s, he was playing in local bands, but there was another problem. His name, David Jones, was too easily confused with Davy Jones of the Monkees. So he reinvented himself, choosing a name as sharp as a blade, Bowie, after the Bowie knife. Even then, he knew that identity wasn't fixed. To survive, you had to adapt, and reinvention would become his greatest art form. His early singles went nowhere. His first self-titled album in 1967 was ignored. But failure taught him a crucial lesson. Transformation was not optional. It was survival. And soon the world would see what that meant. By the end of the 1960s, humanity was looking toward the stars. Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey, captivated audiences. Bowie watched, transfixed, and imagined a lonely astronaut drifting into silence. Out came Major Tom, the doomed figure of Space Oddity. Fate struck when the song was released in July 1969, just days before Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon. Suddenly, this young outsider had created the soundtrack for the space age. Ground Control to Major Tom wasn't just a lyric, it was the sound of a new decade. Bowie's ambition didn't stop there. With Hunky Dory, he gave the world Changes, Queen Bitch, and the soaring Life on Mars. Critics called the album a masterpiece, full of cinematic melodies and sharp character studies. But Bowie was only warming up. In 1972, he unleashed his most famous creation, Ziggy Stardust. Ziggy was an androgynous alien rock star, flamboyant, shocking, seductive. With flaming red hair, futuristic makeup, and costumes designed by Japanese visionary Kansai Yamamoto, Bowie didn't just sing, he transformed into a character from another planet. Backed by his band, the Spiders from Mars, he electrified audiences. For many, Ziggy blurred the line between art and reality. Was Bowie the man or the alien? Fans didn't care. They worshipped him. But Bowie wasn't content to be trapped, even by his own invention. At the height of fame, in 1973, he stunned the world by killing off Ziggy on stage. Reinvention demanded sacrifice. He would never let one persona consume him. Yet the pace took its toll. Bowie turned his fractured energy into new personas. Aladdin Sane, painted with a lightning bolt across his face to symbolize a split identity. The Thin White Duke, elegant and menacing, haunted by excess. Fame and substances gnawed at him. Tabloids whispered. On stage, he seemed half ghost, half prophet. His fear of flying pushed him to travel overland. After concerts in Japan, he boarded the Trans-Siberian Railway in 1973, journeying across the Soviet Union. To locals, this thin, orange-haired foreigner in a kimono looked like a Martian. He waved at track workers, joked with passengers, and marveled at endless forests. But he also caught the attention of the KGB, who confiscated his film reels after seeing him photograph Soviet stations. The episode only deepened his legend, a space oddity riding the world's longest train, forever out of place, forever magnetic. Back in the West, he recorded The Man Who Sold the World, a record of paranoia and identity crises, and then Young Americans, where he reinvented himself again with what he called plastic soul. Collaborating with John Lennon on Fame, Bowie slipped seamlessly into funk and R&B, genres bent around him. From Ziggy's Glitter, he stepped into the Thin White Duke, elegant, haunted, dangerous, on Station to Station. Provocative interviews and a notorious photo angle led to toxic rumors and a political firestorm he rejected. The mask felt too close to the bone. Bowie needed saving, from fame, from himself. He fled to Europe. He fled to Berlin. Renting an apartment near the Wall, Bowie began one of his most fertile periods. With Brian Eno, he created the Berlin Trilogy, Low, Heroes, and Lodger. The music blended rock, electronic soundscapes, and avant-garde experiments. It was daring, alien, and deeply influential. The title track Heroes, inspired by lovers embracing by the Berlin Wall, became an anthem of resistance. Years later, Bowie performed near that same wall, and thousands of East Germans gathered on the other side to listen. Police tried to scatter them, but the crowd shouted louder, "Tear down the wall!" Bowie's art had spilled into history itself. Just when the world thought they had him figured out, he turned again. In 1983, he worked with Nile Rodgers to create Let's Dance. Sleek, funky, and radio-ready, it propelled him to global superstardom. MTV played his videos on repeat. Stadiums roared. Songs like Modern Love and China Girl filled the charts. Bowie had conquered the mainstream, but even at his pop peak, he remained restless. He expanded into film. In The Man Who Fell to Earth, he was the perfect alien, fragile, magnetic, lost. In Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, he played a soldier prisoner of war, embodying resilience. Later came Labyrinth, where as Jareth the Goblin King, he hypnotized a generation of fans with charisma that was both frightening and irresistible. Bowie treated every medium, film, theater, music, as another costume to slip into, another mask to wear. His collaborations became legends. One late-night jam with Queen birthed Under Pressure, Freddie Mercury and Bowie pushing each other into greatness. Decades later, its bass line would fuel another global hit, proving Bowie's reach stretched even into genres he never touched directly. He moved on screen like a prism. Thomas Jerome Newton in The Man Who Fell to Earth, a hypnotic presence in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, The Hunger, Broadway stages. Bowie treated every medium as a costume to try on, and, somehow, make iconic. In love, though, he found the right one. In the early 90s, Bowie met Iman, the Somali supermodel who became his anchor. Their romance was tender, ordinary in the best way. One evening, noticing her shoelace untied, Bowie knelt and tied it for her. Not as a rock star, but as a man in love. They married in 1992, and for the first time, Bowie seemed grounded. With Iman, he found peace, and his music reflected it. Black Tie White Noise was infused with warmth, joy, and a sense of stability long missing from his life. While peers faded, Bowie explored industrial, electronic, drum and bass. Outside Earthling, he headlined massive festivals, collaborated widely, and then, as if by design, stepped back. A quiet decade, fatherhood, fewer interviews, the artist as private citizen. He returned with The Next Day, a mirror held up to his own past. Then he wrote a stage musical, Lazarus, revisiting the alien who fell to Earth and never quite got home. Opening Night Smiles hit a different story. Bowie was racing the clock. On January 8, 2016, his 69th birthday, he released Blackstar. Jazz players, experimental forms, symbols tucked in shadows, letters shaped from star fragments, a cover that read his name without saying it. 2 days later, the world learned the truth. Bowie had left a final masterpiece as a message in a bottle. Even his exit was art. Reports say his cremation was private, ashes scattered in places he loved, no public funeral, just music, memory, myth. That same season, a car was launched toward the stars to the sound of Space Oddity, Major Tom, Forever in Orbit. Bowie changed more than music. He changed how we see identity, performance, masculinity, fashion, how an artist can shapeshift without losing the soul. From U2 to Lady Gaga, Joy Division to hip-hop samples, cinema to runway, his fingerprints are everywhere. He gave us permission to become, to break our own molds, to be many. David Bowie didn't just make records, he performed life itself, mask after mask, truth shining through the disguise. When the final curtain fell, he left constellations were still mapping. He didn't become a legend, he became eternal. If Bowie's fearless reinvention lit you up, you're in the right place. This is high-voltage rock history, epic stories behind the icons. Subscribe, and let's keep the signal alive.